actually December 9th, 2003. My wife refers to it as the brain explosion of 2003. I hadn't been feeling well for a couple weeks. I'd gone to the doctors. They couldn't find anything wrong with me. And that night, on December 9th, I actually had a grand mal seizure. And they put me in a drug-induced coma and actually told my wife that be prepared to say goodbye.
Welcome to Waking Up to Life with Rabbi Josh, a podcast built around conversations with people in our community who have found enlightenment in their lives. While these events may not seem life-changing, this conversation will reveal how these moments shape the way my guests see the world. This informal conversation and insights from Jewish tradition may just change your life as well. And if not, it's just 18 minutes with me. So l'chaim, to life. Today we welcome Ian Burnstein, who is an entrepreneur and the president of the Bernstein Medical Clinic. It's such a pleasure to have Ian with us today. He is not only a friend, but an important member of our Jewish community here in Detroit. And I'm really looking forward to having you on the show.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thanks for having me.
So, Ian, you've had many opportunities to see the world with new perspectives. In your own personal life, we've shared stories about incidents that have changed the way you see things in terms of your experiences with other people and experiences with business. But I think none of them was more valuable or poignant than a health episode that you had a few years ago. And I'm hoping you can share just a little bit of that story with the audience.
Sure, be happy to. So it was actually December 9th, 2003. My wife refers to it as the brain explosion of 2003. I hadn't been feeling well for a couple weeks. I'd gone to the doctors. They couldn't find anything wrong with me. And that night, on December 9th, I actually had a grand mal seizure. And they put me in a drug-induced coma and actually told my wife that be prepared to say goodbye. They couldn't figure out what was wrong, test after test. Thought it was strokes, thought it was this, they couldn't put a label on it. Eventually, they realized I had severe brain damage and that if I were to make it, I'd have a long, long road back and would likely not make it back. So I woke up 8 days later after being in a coma. I don't remember the first 4 of them. And to put it mildly, to wake up and to not have your faculties and not have your mind work and doubt everything that you know and believe. And quickly after coming home, realizing that every doctor who came in to see me said it was a miracle that I was alive to begin with. It was actually called acute disseminated encephalomyelitis. Took me about a year to be able to say that.
Yeah, can you say that 3 times?
Right,
fast?
Exactly. ADEM, they call it for short. And long story short, I couldn't do the most basic tasks. I couldn't be in a room where 2 people were talking at once. I couldn't do anything math related when I was in real estate. Numbers were a huge part of my game. I couldn't do anything directionally. At first, I couldn't drive a car. So there was many things that I couldn't do. And the medication that they had me on was severely depressing, and it was a very bleak outlook. And so, and I knew that I couldn't do the basic things I was able to do before, but I was trying to hide it, which put up a lot of defenses, and I was not a very pleasant person to be around. But I realized quickly through that process that I wouldn't have made it but for a million different items happening, all coming together. Number one, having the medical resources. My father had just passed away and he was a doctor. And so other medical professionals stepped right in to go above and beyond for me. My wife was incredible, forced me into going into occupational therapy when I refused to do it. I mean, literally 6 months away from this incident, doing 3rd grade workbooks and not getting the answers right. That's how bad it was. But most important, she actually forced me to change my medical doctor. Actually, we switched to a mutual friend of ours, actually, John Fellows, who I tell him all the time I see him, the world's greatest doctor, and literally saved my life. I mean, literally took me out of my funk and got me on a path. So all these things and I also had an employer that stuck behind me while this was all happening too. Never once, Bruce and Dan Israel stood behind me, kept me employed, which kept my confidence going. And I worked and I worked and I worked. And I realized afterwards that there's a community at large, whether it was driving me places because I couldn't drive, or bringing food over for us. And not to mention at the time, we were 8 weeks pregnant with our first child. So almost didn't get to meet them. So you have this incredible new outlook on life once you can kind of get to the other side. For a while, I was a miserable person. But once I got there and was able to reflect, I saw what it took to help me get there. And I will tell you, every day is a gift. I call every day a bonus day. Very little bothers me. I get upset with myself when I let something bother me that is so small. And so, don't sweat the small stuff certainly applies to me. It motivated me to give back to the people that helped me. I really stepped up my involvement in community, in charities, running the Bernstein Clinic, after my dad passing away, has been one of the greatest gifts I've ever been given. And I just really appreciate every day. I mean, it changed how I operate in business. I took a chance and left a job, and it changed how I enjoy and I go with full gusto on vacations and how I interact with friends. So my outlook is forever changed.
So I'm listening to you tell the story. We've talked about this incident before, and I didn't even realize it. In many ways, you are living the title of this podcast, Waking Up to Life. You literally woke up to life. And even these many years later, I'm hearing the emotion in your voice when you talk about those first days. So is there a single lesson that you think is the most powerful experience that you take away from that initial moment?
So I would say, I don't know if I'm necessarily answering the question, but my father had passed away 2 or 3, it was September, end of September, and this happened beginning of December. So my father just passed away not long before it. And I remember having this very intense conversation with him when he told me about his diagnosis, about how he had no regrets, right? He lived a great life, terrible that he's going to leave the earth at age 60, not meet my kids. But he said, I've exceeded all the expectations for my life and I have no regrets. So when I was still in the process of kind of digesting what had just happened, losing, my best friend, best man at my wedding. And then for something like this to happen to me so suddenly, that when I got to the other side, that my dad's saying about living without regret, just is so important and something that I've lived by from that moment. I mean, literally, the day before I went bowling with my friends, bowled the 201, I had was out and doing what I normally do. And then the next day, basically, just unbelievably lucky to be alive, let alone being where I'm at today.
So many people who know you, your friends, your community members, people with whom you work, all know that is the Ian we experience, right? The guy who is willing to try anything, willing to be open to anything, really in many amazing ways, no judgment of anybody. For me, that's one of the most powerful pieces of your story, is that you have allowed that incident to expand your social circle, to expand your business circle, to enter into the community. So I'm wondering if there is something that was triggered in you that has allowed you to sort of get rid of that judgmental side and be a more welcoming, open, loving person, and how it's affected even your personal relationships.
Yeah, that's a great question. I just have to think that the appreciation for life and realizing, okay, it was almost over, right? It could have easily been done. And I don't want to leave anything on the table. And so I want everything to be better. I want to have more experiences and travel more with my kids. I want to be a better husband. I want to, do things with my friends that we're going to just create incredible memories. Despite any, it just made me realize, talking to my dad a lot over the 6 months after his diagnosis until he passed, was, nobody else is going to remember how much money he had or how hard he worked, right? It's not important, but they will remember the fact that he touched thousands of patients in a way that is unimaginable and gave them dignity. And it really inspired me to make sure that I didn't do anything short of that. I wanted to make sure that I could help and inspire people as well.
So your father taught you explicitly that lesson, and then your experience, that medical moment, allowed you to put his teaching into practice. I'm wondering, do you have these explicit conversations with your wife, Marcy, with your kids? Is this something that you talk about as a new version of who you are explicitly with your family?
I don't know that I would say anything new. I mean, it's funny. I mean, I joke about this, but it's in some way true. I mean, there's nothing for me to know. Like, I literally could have woken up from this experience and been a different person.
Yeah.
Right. I could have been a much worse person before, a much better person now, and everyone could be telling me how I was before. Right. Literally, that's what could be happening within my mind. So I don't know that I necessarily talk about how different I am from that experience, but I certainly grew from it. And I will tell you, my wife, who, first of all, I'm unbelievably lucky to, be with her for 30 years. Actually, tomorrow will be 30 years. And just, yeah. And so, just the idea that she had the ability to, had the skill set and the ability to push me through to make these changes within my treatment and not let me just suffer, and wouldn't accept no from me, I think really changed me. So I think that, I think a lot about, and I do talk to the kids a ton about the lessons that I've learned from it.
But what you just said really inspired me in this moment. You are not necessarily a different person than the person you were before, but your outlook is maybe different. Maybe in the spirit of this podcast, you woke up to recognizing how important it is to live out that reality in your life. And I want to just transfer the conversation a little bit to the side. This didn't just happen once, right? You had another incident in your life as a person who needed a kidney transplant to sort of learn the lesson over again. Do you think that you're just stubborn? You needed more than one episode?
I guess the first one maybe didn't take enough. I knew actually that I got diagnosed with this disease before that incident, just before the incident happened, like a year earlier. My mom had the disease as well. My grandfather had it. Hopefully my kids will not. But I knew it was coming, and happened a lot earlier than I ever anticipated, probably 15 to 20 years earlier than I thought it would happen or would hope it would happen, because I was living a very regimented, healthy life to try to extend the life of the kidneys that I had, and just the universe didn't want to agree with me. So I learned a ton through that experience as well. Just the power of, I received a kidney from a stranger. I've become very close with his family. And what's really been great is I've been able to mentor a lot of other people about my experience and formed incredible relationships and friendships.
But this seems to be a real theme for you, right? So you come out of one experience and you begin to change other people's lives. You come out of the kidney moment and you take advantage of that chance to make a difference in the world. Your father died, and the clinic is created in his honor as a community clinic offering free healthcare to members in our community. Why is it so important for you to use your skill set, your resources to teach and give to others?
Well, I don't know how much I'm actually helping. I hope I'm helping others, but I just feel it's the right thing to do. I mean, just from both my parents, I learned that at a young age, and I feel like I've been given two incredible gifts, and you know, could be easily been the other way around. And so kind of cheated death now twice. And I just feel like if I can help other people, number one, it feels good. It feels right. And it's just, I guess, part of what I feel I need to do. I can't explain it.
Well, I appreciate your humility in suggesting that you may or may not be making a difference in this world. Those of us who know you are in so many examples inspired by your work. I have to have you on the podcast again and talk more about the clinic itself and the work you're doing there. But even just as I watch you as a husband and a father, as a friend, I'm really overwhelmed with the humanity that you bring into the world. And in Hebrew, the word anavah, or humility, is part of the Musar tradition, and it's one of the core values that we start with to then build the next stage of life. So that I want to just sort of move towards the end of this conversation by asking you a question about that humility. What is the next stage? What comes out of your humility in terms of what do you see in the future? Like what is your role here, given these experiences that you've had in the past?
So, you know, one of the things I think is most important is for me personally is to continue what I'm doing with the clinic. I think we can actually, some of the things that we've implemented, and we're right on course before COVID happened, and it's thrown us off a bit because we had partnerships with hospitals. But I think the way that we're doing things at the Bernstein Clinic could actually really help change the way things, I mean, if done right, could really help change the way healthcare is done for indigent people in this country. I think we're onto something. So to me, that's where I feel I can really make the most difference in the world.
And it's more than just giving back to people in terms of free healthcare. It's about changing the way we see the system of healthcare and maybe getting to a better place. And quite frankly, maybe COVID is a positive in that way, that we are here in this moment, but there are now opportunities in front of us.
Yeah, no, the only thing I think that's really limited us is just really, well, I know the only thing that's really limiting us right now is the capacity of the hospitals, who are just, you know, right now they're just focused on doing what's right in front of them, and planning is very challenging for them, and I get it. But once they can kind of stabilize the system a bit, and you're right, I mean, timing could be on our side because we actually provide them a way to save a ton of money. And while we're giving great dignity, we're also I think we can actually help the economic system, you know, for not only the hospitals, but, you know, for Medicare and Medicaid. I think we can actually make a very significant difference.
And I think it's fair to say there's a straight line from your own medical challenges and the lessons you've learned to how you can use that to help other people have experiences that are better in the medical system and beyond, really, in our lives. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you here today, because I think you have a mind that approaches life in this beautiful way that really can help other people. So we're coming to the end of the podcast, and I have one question that I've asked every one of my guests so far. It's a simple one, but I think it tells a lot about you and about your family. Is there a book that you've recently read, or a television show that you're binge watching through this pandemic that you would say has given you another lesson of life?
Oh, God. I really can't think of anything. As far as, yeah, I mean, listen, I actually, so the last book I read was this book by a guy named Bill Browder. It's called Red Rising, I think it's called. He basically went to Russia when they opened up the Soviet Union, and got hosed by the Russian government, the Soviet government on it. Actually, it was Russian government by then, on some business. And rather than just taking it and risking his own life, he actually took them on and won. And so it was well, it's more of a business book, but the lesson, now, well, two things happened. Number one, he took him on and won, and he had the courage to do it. But number two, during the process, one of his best friends and coworkers was killed trying to support him. And through that, he went back and actually got legislations passed through Congress, which is put into law. It's called the Magnitsky Act, and it helps people who could be tortured or taken advantage of in other countries. So he took his experience and then went and helped other people. So I think that
it's exactly the same story, right? I think we're often attracted to books that reflect some of our own personal values, and that's very similar. We have experiences, and we have two choices: to be beaten by them or to beat them and use them in our favor and for the betterment of our community. And Ian, I love having you as a friend, and I love having this chance to talk today. I really thank you for being a part of this podcast. I don't know if you have a last moment of something you want to share.
No, it's just, it's an honor to be here. And I'd say that I'm happy that I got to celebrate your 25th anniversary, and you deserve all the accolades you received.
Thank you. It's been great to have Ian Burnstein, a local entrepreneur here in the suburbs of Detroit, the president of the Gary Burnstein Medical Clinic in Pontiac, Michigan. Ian, you are an inspiration to all of us, and I hope those of you who are watching will tune in next time as we continue the dialogue with members of our community who have woken up to life through moments that they've experienced. Until then, l'chaim to all of you.